The night Michael proposed, Lagos held its breath. Lilian would remember that evening forever. Not because of the diamond, not because of the crowd, but because of the way her heart nearly burst out of her chest when he knelt in front of her. It happened at Echo Atlantic, under a sky so clear it looked staged. Soft music floated through the air, cameras flashed, people gasped. And then there was Michael, tall, confident, expensive in every possible way, on one knee, holding a ring that sparkled like it had swallowed the moon. "Lilian," he said, his voice calm, practiced, powerful, "you've changed my life. Will you marry me?" For a second she forgot how to breathe. 24 years old, daughter of a retired civil servant and a petty trader, raised in a two-bedroom flat in Surulere, where dreams were free but money was not. And here she was, being proposed to by Michael Stone, one of the youngest billionaires in Nigeria. People screamed. Someone shouted, "Say yes!" Her hands shook. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, yes, I will." The crowd erupted. Michael slid the ring onto her finger, stood up, and kissed her. Fireworks exploded above them, lighting the night like heaven had approved the union. Lilian cried into his chest, overwhelmed. She had won, when at least that was what it felt like. By the next morning, the news had spread like wildfire. "Mama Lilian, your daughter is married to a billionaire." Her mother nearly dropped her phone. "Jesus," she screamed, drawing attention from neighbors. "God has remembered my family." Her father sat quietly into the corner, pretending to read his newspaper, but his eyes were wet. For years he had worried about his daughters, how to protect them in a country that swallowed soft girls whole. Now one of them was safe. Or so he thought. Wedding plans started immediately. ASO Airby discussions. Guest lists, venues, dress designers, makeup artists. Everything became loud, bright, expensive. Lilian moved through it all like she was floating. This was not just love. It was rescue. It was proof that patience paid. Michael was generous. He paid for everything without blinking. "Whatever makes you happy," he kept saying. Each time he said it, Lilian felt smaller and bigger at the same time. Through all of it, Sophie stayed close. Her younger sister, her shadow, her best friend. Sophie was 21, fresh out of university, soft-spoken with a quiet smile. She helped Lilian choose colours, fabrics, even flowers. She laughed at jokes, offered opinions when asked, and hugged Lilian when the stress became too much. But sometimes, very sometimes, Lilian caught something else in her sister's eyes. Sadness. It was fleeting, gone before Lilian could question it. "You okay?" Lilian asked one evening as they sat on the balcony, scrolling through wedding inspiration pictures. Sophie smiled. "Of course, I'm just happy for you." And Lilian believed her. Why wouldn't she? Michael came around often during those weeks. He liked spending time with the family, or at least he said he did. He greeted Mama Grace warmly, respected Papa Dan, and joked with the uncles. Everyone adored him, especially Sophie. It started with small things. Inside jokes. A comment Michael made during dinner. "Don't worry, Sophie will understand. She's smarter than you think." Sophie laughed. "You remember." Lilian smiled too, though she wasn't sure what he was referring to. Another time, Michael teased Sophie about her habit of biting her lower lip when she was thinking. "You noticed that?" Sophie asked, surprised. Michael shrugged. Hard not to. Lilian told herself it was nothing. He was friendly. He was observant. He was just Michael. Still, there were moments. Moments when Michael's laughter came too easily around Sophie, moments when Sophie's face lit up in a way Lilian had never seen before, moments when conversations flowed between them without effort, leaving Lilian smiling politely on the side. One evening, Lilian walked into the living room and found them laughing, really laughing, over something on Michael's phone. "What's funny?" she asked. Sophie quickly straightened. "Oh, just something silly." Michael locked the phone. "You had to be there." It wasn't meant to sting, but it did. That night, Lilian lay in bed beside Michael, staring at the ceiling. He slept peacefully, one arm around her waist, his breathing slow and steady. She studied his face, the sharp jaw, the confidence etched into every line. "This man chose me," she reminded herself. "He proposed to me. He's marrying me." So why did a small, cold thought refuse to leave her mind? Why does he look at Sophie like that? She pushed the thought away immediately. Love wasn't suspicious. Happiness wasn't something to analyze. And sisters didn't betray sisters. Lilian turned towards him, rested her head on his chest and closed her eyes. The honeymoon was supposed to be perfect. That was what everyone said. Abuja welcomed them with quiet luxury, the kind that didn't shout like Lagos. Their hotel sat high on a hill, all glass walls and soft lighting. The city stretched beneath them like a promise. The first morning, Lilian woke up smiling. She turned toward Michael, expecting his arms, his warmth. Instead, he was already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed, phone in hand, brows drawn together. "Work?" she asked sleepily. He flinched, then smiled, "Just checking something small." She wrapped the duvet around herself and kissed his back. "You're on honeymoon, sir." He laughed lightly, but the phone didn't leave his hand. It was the first crack. Small, easy to ignore. They went sightseeing, dinners, late-night talks by the balcony. Michael was present, but not fully. Sometimes his eyes drifted. Sometimes his replies came a second too late. Lilian blamed herself. Maybe marriage is just an adjustment. Maybe he's tired. Maybe billionaires don't really switch off. One afternoon, as she lay by the pool watching him scroll through his phone, she noticed something. He smiled. Not a polite smile, not a business smile. A soft one. "Who are you smiling at?" she asked playfully. Michael looked up quickly. "Nobody." He locked the phone. The smile disappeared. 3 days into the honeymoon, Sophie called. "I don't want to disturb you," Sophie said carefully, "but I'm already in Abuja for a friend's event." Lilian sat upright. "You're in Abuja?" "Yes. I thought maybe we could see, just briefly." Lilian hesitated, then smiled. "Of course. You're my sister." Michael, who had been pretending not to listen, looked up. "Oh," he said. "Sophie is coming." The way he said her name was light, casual. But his eyes brightened. Lilian didn't notice, or maybe she chose not to. Sophie arrived that evening. She looked radiant, simple dress, glowing skin, that same gentle smile that always made people soften around her. She hugged Lilian tightly. "Married woman," she teased. Michael stood behind Lilian, watching. "Welcome," he said. "Abuja suits you." Sophie laughed. "Thank you." During dinner, conversation flowed easily. Too easily. Michael told stories Sophie had clearly heard before. She finished his sentences without thinking. They laughed at the same moments in the same way. Lilian smiled, nodded, played the role of a happy wife. Still, something sat heavy in her chest. Later, as Sophie excused herself to take a call, Michael watched her walk away. Just for a moment. Long enough. That night, Lilian lay awake beside him again. Michael slept soundly, phone charging on the bedside table. A message notification lit the screen briefly. She didn't read it, she didn't reach for the phone. She turned away instead. I'm overthinking, she told herself. I've waited too long for this happiness to start doubting it now. She remembered the wedding day, the vows, the way Michael looked at her as he said, I do. That had to count for something. Outside, Abuja was quiet. Inside, Lilian pressed her doubts down deep where they couldn't breathe. Because love, she believed, should not feel like suspicion. And sisters should never feel like rivals. So she closed her eyes, held on to the illusion of peace, and slept unaware that the cracks she ignored were already widening. The discovery happened on an ordinary morning. That was the cruelest part of it. No thunder, no dramatic music, just sunlight slipping through the curtains of their Lagos home and the quiet hum of a city waking up. Michael was in the bathroom. Lilian sat on the bed, scrolling through her phone, still half asleep. His phone buzzed on the bedside table. Once, twice. She wasn't the type to check her husband's phone. Trust, she believed, was the foundation of marriage. But the screen lit up again, and the name that appeared made her chest tighten. Sophie. The heart emoji was small, almost harmless. Almost. Lilian told herself she was being silly. Sophie was family. Of course they would talk. Of course there would be jokes. Still, her hand moved before her mind could stop it. She picked up the phone. Ah, the message was open already. You always know how to make me laugh. Yesterday was nice. Lilian's breath caught. Yesterday? Michael stepped out of the bathroom, towel around his waist. Morning, he said casually. She dropped the phone like it had burned her. Morning, she replied, forcing a smile that felt glued to her face. Her heart thumped so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Later that day, when Michael left for work, Lilian sat alone in the living room. The house was too quiet. Her mind replayed the message again and again. Yesterday was nice. Nice how? She fought the urge for hours, tried to distract herself, cleaned, cooked, folded clothes that didn't need folding. By evening, the urge won. She unlocked Michael's iPad. The messages were there. Not explicit, not sinful, not enough to accuse anyone of anything. But they were familiar. You get me. You always notice the small things. I wish we had talked longer. You make stressful days easier. Her chest tightened with every scroll. This wasn't how brothers-in-law talked to sisters-in-law. This was how emotional doors were opened, quietly. Lilian's hands shook. She sat back, staring at the wall. Am I imagining this? Am I jealous? Am I becoming insecure because I married above my class? The questions attacked her from every direction. She called Sophie. Sis, Sophie answered cheerfully. How is married life? Lilian swallowed. Fine. I just wanted to ask, you and Michael talk a lot. There was a pause, just a second too long. He's my brother now, Sophie said lightly. Is that a problem? No, Lilian said quickly. I was just curious. Sophie laughed softly. You worry too much. I would never cross a line. Never. The word echoed. That night, Michael noticed Lilian's silence. Everything okay? He asked. She looked at him. The man she loved, the man she trusted, the man whose phone now felt like a locked room full of unanswered questions. Yes, she lied. Just tired. He kissed her forehead. Get some rest. As he turned away, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, smiled, put it face down. Lilian closed her eyes. Her heart ached, not from proof, but from possibility. The worst kind of pain. Because when betrayal is subtle, it doesn't scream. It whispers. and those whispers had begun to sound like her sister's voice. One Saturday afternoon, Michael hosted a small family lunch at the house. Nothing formal, just food, laughter, and the comfort of familiarity. Her mother sat in the living room chatting happily with an aunt. Her father dozed lightly in a chair. Lilian stepped into the kitchen to get more drinks. That was when she heard laughter. Soft, private. She followed the sound to the balcony. Michael and Sophie stood there, close, closer than necessary. Sophie laughed, her head tilted back, one hand resting lightly on Michael's arm. His fingers were still there, not gripping, not pulling away, just resting. Lilian froze. They didn't see her at first. Michael leaned closer, saying something she couldn't hear. Sophie laughed again, her fingers brushing his wrist as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Then their eyes met. Michael straightened immediately. "Hey," he said too quickly. "We were just talking." Sophie smiled. "You scared me." Lilian forced a smile. "Did I?" Her heart felt like it was cracking quietly, politely, so no one else would notice. Lilian couldn't carry it anymore. The weight of silence had become heavier than the truth she was afraid to hear. It happened on a Tuesday night, the kind of night that should have been ordinary. Michael came home late, loosened his tie, and dropped his briefcase by the door like always. "Long day," he said. Lilian watched him for a moment, then spoke. "We need to talk." Something shifted in his eyes. Not fear, calculation. They sat opposite each other in the living room. The distance between them felt wider than the room itself. "I'm not imagining things, Michael," Lilian began, her voice steady only because she forced it to be. "You and Sophie. Something is not right." He exhaled slowly, rubbing his face. "Not this again." That sentence alone felt like a slap. "Again," she repeated. "So you know there's something to talk about." Michael leaned back, crossing his arms. "Lilian, you're reading too much into harmless things." "Harmless?" Her voice cracked. "The messages, the looks, the touching. Do you think I'm blind?" He stood up, pacing. "You're insecure." The word landed sharply. "Insecure because I married a billionaire?" she asked bitterly. "No," he said quickly. "Insecure because you don't trust yourself." That was how he did it. He didn't deny, he redirected. "You come from a simple background," he continued calmly. "This life is new to you. It can make people paranoid." Paranoid. Lilian felt the floor tilt beneath her. "So it's my fault," she whispered. Michael softened then, his voice gentle, almost loving. "I love you. I married you. Why would I do that if I wanted your sister?" Her heart squeezed painfully. She wanted to believe him. Still shaking, Lilian called Sophie that same night. She needed to look her sister in the eyes. Sophie arrived quickly, worry written all over her face. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting beside Lilian. Lilian didn't waste time. "Are you involved with my husband?" Sophie's mouth fell open. "What?" she gasped. "No, never." Tears filled her eyes instantly. Perfect. Convincing. "How can you even think that?" Sophie cried. "I would never betray you like that." She covered her face, shoulders shaking. "I admire Michael," Sophie said between sobs. "Yes, he's kind to me, but that's all. You're my sister." Lilian felt sick. "Then why do the messages feel, intimate?" she asked softly. Sophie looked up, eyes red. "Because you're misunderstanding everything." There it was. "You've changed since you got married," Sophie continued gently. "You see problems where there are none. Maybe you're afraid of losing him." The words pierced deep. Sophie stood up. "I never expected this from you," she said quietly, "accusing me of stealing your husband." She walked out crying. Lilian sat frozen. That night, Michael held her. "You see," he murmured, "you hurt her." Tears slid silently down Lilian's face. "I just wanted the truth," she whispered. "And you have it," he replied. "There's nothing going on. You need to let this go." But as Michael fell asleep beside her, Lilian stared into the darkness. Her heart felt bruised, her mind felt confused, her instincts felt betrayed. Everyone said she was wrong. So why did the pain feel so right? The confrontation didn't bring peace. It broke something inside her. And once broken, it could never return to what it was before. The truth arrived the morning Lilian finally decided to believe she was crazy. She had just finished telling herself that maybe she was overreacting. Maybe love had made her insecure. Maybe marriage had made her fragile. Her phone buzzed. A message from Tina, her closest friend since university. "Lilian, are you alone?" Her stomach dropped. "Yes. Why?" There was a long pause. Then another message came through, heavier than the first. "I don't know how to say this, but I think you need to see something." "See what?" Lilian asked. "A friend of mine. She works at your sister's office. She saw something and I didn't know how else to tell you." Before Lilian could reply, her phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't text. It was a video. Her hands shook as she opened it. The scene was a quiet, upscale restaurant in Lekki. The angle was distant, like someone hiding behind a plant. At first, she couldn't make out the people. Then her heart stopped. Michael. Sophie. Her husband and her sister. Michael's hand brushed against Sophie's, not awkwardly, not fleetingly, slowly, comfortably. She laughed softly at something he whispered, her head tilting in a way that Lilian had never seen him do in her presence. And then her world shattered. Michael leaned down and kissed Sophie. Not a quick peck, not a playful hug, but a deliberate, intimate kiss. The video ended there. Lilian's knees gave way. She dropped the phone, a guttural cry escaping her throat. A flood of pictures followed. Michael stepping out of Sophie's apartment late at night, her hand brushing his chest. The two of them laughing in a cafe, heads almost touching. Every smile, every touch, every laugh, they had been lying to her. Her chest burned like it was on fire. So I wasn't crazy. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't imagining things. I was being betrayed. Michael walked in an hour later. He stopped when he saw her sitting in the living room, eyes swollen, phone on the table between them. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked. She stood up slowly. Without a word, she pushed the phone toward him. "Explain." He glanced at the screen. Just once. His face changed. Not shock, not confusion. Resignation. "How long?" Lilian asked, her voice shaking violently. "How long have you been sleeping with my sister?" Michael opened his mouth, then closed it again. That silence was louder than any confession. Sophie had won the lie. Michael had lost the mask. Lilian felt something snap inside her, clean and final. She screamed then. She cried, she hit the table, she sank to the floor. Rage and despair twisted together in her chest until she could barely breathe. "You married me," she sobbed. "You stood in front of God and my family and married me." Michael tried to speak. She raised her hand. "Don't," she said hoarsely. I defended you. I doubted myself. I doubted my own blood. Her voice broke completely. I trusted you both. Michael stood there, helpless, exposed. And Lilian realized something terrifying. The pain wasn't just that he loved her sister. It was that he let her destroy herself, trying to protect them. As Michael's silence filled the room, Lilian knew this betrayal wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And it had just destroyed everything she thought her life was built on. The house now felt like a cage. Lilian barely left her room. She thought about Michael's soft lies, his reassurances that now felt like manipulations, Sophie's tearful excuses that rang hollow. She contacted Tina, the friend who had first sent her the videos. I need everything, Lilian said, her voice cold but steady. All the evidence you have, photos, videos, messages, everything Michael and Sophie ever tried to hide. Tina hesitated. Are you sure, Lilian? I'm done hiding, Lilian replied. Done pretending I don't see the truth. Done being the fool. Within days, Lilian compiled everything. Every text, every photo, every private joke captured on camera, every breadcrumb of intimacy that had been hidden behind smiles and family gatherings. She approached the family group chat, composed of relatives, close friends, and a few trusted neighbors. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply wrote, I trusted both of you. I defended both of you. But trust was broken. Here is the truth. Decide for yourselves. And then she attached the evidence. The reaction was immediate. The next morning, Lilian woke to a storm she could never have prepared for. Her mother was crying uncontrollably in the living room, while her father sat silently, his jaw tight, fists clenching the arms of his chair. This can't be true, her mother wailed, burying her face in her hands. Not my daughters. Not my Lilian. But it was true, and everyone knew it now. Relatives flooded the house, some to offer comfort, some to judge. Whispers and pointed fingers replaced laughter. Cousins who had been close to Lilian now avoided her gaze. The luxury of her wedding, the glittering celebration, it all felt hollow, meaningless, like a cruel joke. And in the middle of it all stood Sophie, perfectly composed, or at least attempting to be. I didn't mean for anyone to find out, Sophie said softly to Lilian, her voice breaking, tears streaking her face. But Michael, he loves me more than you. I can't control my heart. Lilian froze, unable to speak. Her sister, her blood, her own sister, was telling her the very thing she had feared. She was secondary. What are you saying? Lilian's voice shook. You're defending this. After everything? Sophie shook her head. I didn't do anything wrong. You're misunderstanding. You're overreacting. Maybe you've always been jealous. Michael is mine. He's always wanted me. Lilian's hands shook, fists curling, rage and heartbreak collided. You're insane, she shouted. He married me. You swore you'd never hurt me. Sophie's calmness was infuriating. I'm not the one who made him choose me, she said quietly. I just accepted what was already there. Her father finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. Michael, is this true? Michael, who had been silent the entire morning, avoided his father-in-law's gaze. I don't know how to explain, he muttered. Don't know how to explain, her mother screamed. Your wife's sister is telling us you love her more than your wife. Michael shifted uncomfortably. It's complicated. I didn't mean for it to happen. Lilian's heart twisted painfully. Complicated? Betrayal wasn't complicated, it was cruel. The relatives argued, some defending Michael's wealth and charm, others shouting at Sophie for stealing her sister's husband. Lilian sat on the couch, clutching her hands to her chest, as if she could hold herself together physically. Her tears came silently now, a quiet flood. Her world had not just cracked, it had shattered. And the most painful part, both her husband and her sister had betrayed her. She wanted to scream, to hit, to throw things. Instead, she sat there, trembling, watching the people who were supposed to protect her family, her sister, her husband, stand on the opposite side, leaving her alone in the ruins of her life. For the first time, Lilian understood what it felt like to be abandoned by the ones who should have loved her most. And she knew deep down that nothing would ever be the same again. The morning Lilian packed her bags, the house felt impossibly quiet. She didn't glance at the wedding photos. She didn't linger on the gifts or the clothes she had once worn with pride, everything Michael had touched, everything Sophie had smiled beside. It no longer belonged to her life. She left it all behind. Lilian rented a small apartment in Victoria Island, simple but hers. No marble floors, no chandeliers, no golden chandeliers casting artificial light on empty walls. Just her, a few essentials, and the quiet freedom of owning her space. Michael tried to reach out, through calls, messages, even visiting her apartment once, but Lilian had built walls stronger than his charm, taller than his excuses. "I'm done," she said quietly to herself, though she knew he would never understand. "I am enough. I don't need anyone to complete me." And she meant it. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, she texted Sophie for the first time in weeks. Not to reconcile, but to set boundaries. "I hope you find your path, but ours are separate now." No reply. She didn't need one. For Lilian, the greatest lesson of all had become clear. Love could hurt, betrayal could destroy, but choosing herself was the power that could heal everything else.